Welcome, everyone, to Coffee and an Interview. I'm Jacqueline Pena, your host, and I'm really excited today to be here with Robyn Harris. She runs WILD Wellbeing, WILD as an acronym, but I'm going to let her tell you more about that. And so, Robyn, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Jacqueline. It's so exciting to be here and to see where this conversation might take us today.
Yes, I am definitely excited. But first, I think we need to know a little bit more about you to understand WILD Wellbeing and to understand our conversation, which is going to be framed around the idea of safety. So tell us a little bit about yourself.
Thank you. So I guess maybe to start from where I didn't feel safe and why safety has become such a focus point for me. And I grew up in Belfast in Northern Ireland in the 70s and 80s when the Troubles were at their height. So outside of the home, the message was careless talk costs lives. So you learnt to be quiet. And in the home, my father was a challenging character and he was an alcoholic. He had schizoid tendencies. And his moods could be quite volatile. So I grew up feeling like I was walking on eggshells and basically learnt to be quiet in the home as well, not to speak out, not to be seen. I wanted to be invisible because I'd been on the end of some of his moods, some of his tempers, and it was not somewhere I felt safe at all. Both sides, home and outside of home, I was feeling it's not safe to be me. I need to hide. I need to not be visible. I need to wear a mask when I have to be seen so that I'm still hidden. I'm still, you can't get me because you can't see me. I'm either hiding or I'm behind a mask. And then as life went on, I started to experience both emotional and physical challenges. And over time, it was quite a journey, I think I took quite a scenic route. I went through burnout and various different things, but came to realize that those physical symptoms were manifestations of how I felt I had to live. My body basically was showing me that. It was showing me how you're living is not serving you. It started with little whispers and little nudges, and because I didn't know how to listen. I only knew how to no, push all that aside, just keep going. So it turned the volume up and up and up and up. So eventually I had to go on a journey to see if I could make the changes to help me heal, which I didn't actually believe I could. I didn't believe it was possible, but I did. And having come out the other side of that and seeing people who are where I was, that's when I decided that if I can share something that would be of help to other people, even just that they can believe this is possible, because honestly, if I can do it, anybody can do it. I know I've heard people say that and I've thought, yeah, right, but you've got this, and this in your favor. Seriously, if I can make these changes, anybody can. And I wanted to show that they are small, they are simple, they can be fun, and they're repeatable. And then it starts to build its own momentum because you start to feel a bit better and it is fun. And all of a sudden you can look back and think, oh my goodness, my life has changed. My life has changed so much. I can't believe it. But this is possible for anybody who is in that situation and is looking for the possibility of change.
Yeah. I mean, your journey, your story, your journey, the scenic route journey. I love that phrase. Some of us have been there, but your journey speaks volumes in terms of what many of us face at different times, and speaks volumes of things that we don't think about or talk about when looking at uh, things, we call them the small T's, right? The small traumas, the small things that accumulate over time. So this, for example, living in silence, being silenced. In many ways, I think with today's culture, many people lived silent or behind masks. You have a lot of imposter syndrome, a lot of people nervous about what they'll say and how other people will react and what they do. And I don't know if the enhanced social media, where we all put more of the glitzier stuff out there, how that's impacting. I know there is an impact there, but those, you're not feeling safe. That adds to that cumulative small t over time. And we feel it physically, and you did. So thank you for sharing that story too. You took the scenic route towards where you are now, and burnout comes. The body reacts in different ways. You feel sick in different ways, and we tend to treat the symptoms, right? The ulcer, the respiratory issue, the inflammatory issue, the high blood pressure issue. We treat the symptoms, but we don't always dig deeper to see where are these things coming from. And it sounds like you had to do a lot of that digging to get to where you are today.
I did. I was diagnosed with ME, and it took a long time to get to that diagnosis. And that was the first burnout. So at that point, I was still a teenager, and I was very fortunate that I could live at home. And, I didn't have a mortgage. I didn't have a job that I was going to lose. So I lived at home, and I could just go to bed. And I did. And I ended up in a wheelchair and then completely in bed for 8 weeks before I turned a corner. I was very fortunate that I was in bed and then I wasn't. So having had that long period of just feeling like I was going downhill, 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 I then turned a corner, was able to get up out of bed and get back to my life, which was all a bit amazing. But I didn't actually heal. I thought I had, but I had only healed on the surface. There were still a lot of behavioral practices and habits and beliefs that I was holding. So they came back to bite me years later. Because again, I'm fine, I'm fine, I'm fine. And I went back to those, just hiding and wearing a mask and getting on with life and just blinkers on, keep going, keep going, keep going. So I wasn't fully listening to my body and hearing those messages of this isn't working, this isn't serving you, you're feeling really tired here, this needs your attention. And so years later, I was back heading for burnout. And also, I was borderline for a lot of diagnoses, borderline for diabetes, for fibromyalgia, a lot of these things that relate to these beliefs that we hold and these ways that we are living that aren't serving us, because it's our body's only way to communicate with us. It can't speak in words, so it shows us in how we feel. Physical sensations, emotional sensations, thoughts, beliefs. These are all ways that our being has to just give us that little, please, please listen, this needs attention. There's a fantastic quote from A.H. Almas, which I won't remember word for word, but basically he says that the pain and the conflict and the discomfort that we experience is ours. It will never happen in the way that it happens to us, to anyone else, because it is ours. But, and this always gives me goosebumps, it's a message from the part of you that loves you most. It knows that you are so much more than how you're living. And it wants the very best for you. But the only way it has to tell you is by poking at you. So whether that is for me, IBS, eczema, fatigue, migraines, aches and pains around my body, it might be those things that are your body simply trying to say, let me guide you. How you're living right now is not what your life is actually meant to be like. Your life is meant to be so much bigger and so much brighter and so much better. And I want to take you there. Let's have a dialogue. But most of us aren't taught to, okay, show me, tell me, teach me how to listen. Let's build this dialogue. We're actually taught and conditioned from a young age not to trust our body. And if you go to most medical practitioners, they are very highly skilled and highly trained, but they haven't learned this stuff either. So they will look at a symptom in isolation. Oh, you've got a skin condition. Let's look at that. Let's put a cream on that. Or they're not looking at what stresses have you got in your life just now? What's your diet like? What's going on at work? How is home? What's been happening over the last year, couple of years? What stresses are you carrying? Have you had any bereavements? They don't ask, they don't have time to ask those questions. And certainly here in the UK, you're lucky if you can get an appointment with your GP. The GP won't be the same one every time you go to the surgery. It'll be a different partner in the practice. Unlike when I was growing up, you had a family doctor.
Yes.
They were the doctor that you saw every time you weren't well. So they got to know you. And I remember one time that I went when I was in my teens, and I was feeling pretty shut down at the time. So I was a bit grumpy, and he asked me some questions. And I from my perspective, thought, he's not listening, he's not listening, he's not understanding what I'm saying. But when I left, he then contacted my mum and said, is she okay? What's going on? Because she's not herself today.
Oh, wow.
So he knew me well enough to know that. But nowadays, most practices, if you're not seeing the same doctor, they won't know that. And they won't have time to
To do that digging.
do that check in and follow up.
I mean, fascinating because, we're talking about these changes and what are the things causing the diabetes and the asthma, the way we're feeling. And we don't have those family doctor structures where you have someone who knows you over the period of 20, 30 years. And so it now becomes something for us to have to learn how to do. We have to learn how to check in with ourselves, and we have to learn how to see what are the things that are pushing us a little bit off. What are we walking on eggshells more because of something? It's something else happening. How are we feeling? What's different about how we're living in our environment? What is not serving us anymore? What's causing more harm than good over time? So we have to take that time to do that work because someone else might not notice when something changes within us that then affects our health, right? And so
I
it's
just
more
pick you
reflection.
up on something there. I'm very conscious of the words that we use, the words we
Mm,
speak to ourselves and the impact they have on us. So when we say something like, I have to take this and I have to look after myself and I have to learn how to listen to my body, that energy of have to,
it's overwhelming.
and particularly if I'm in burnout, it just feels like, oh, there's another thing I have to carry versus I get to. I
Yes, thank you.
get to take my power back. I get to have agency over my well-being. Or for me, another word which was huge when I was the older child and I felt I was responsible for everything. My mum worked, my dad was my dad, and he worked too. So I was the responsible older child
Hmm.
taking care of my brother and making sure that everything was calm and peaceful in the house so that dad didn't get upset and mum didn't get emotionally upset. But so I hated the word responsible. But then I came across the concept of I am response able. I
Mm.
am able to take the response that I choose. I get to choose. So I have that power of agency. I don't have to give it away. I don't have to live at somebody else's whim or mood or how they're feeling today.
I love that. And, for listeners, I've been struggling a lot with that language, and I'm trying to switch over to that thinking of, I get to do this today. I get to be part of this great project. I get to walk outside in this great weather for an hour today. I get to take care of this person or do this wonderful thing. And now in the interview, I slipped back to that have to, because I'm always thinking about the to-do list. And what I've been working on is that mindset shift. It's not easy. You have to keep reminding yourself. So thank you for pointing that out, that I even use that have to language that doesn't seem as positive, seems as I'm adding more and more things to the to-do list, which is how I tend to live. And that's the switch I'm trying to make.
I think at those times, because most of us are that way, that's the language we've heard growing up.
Mm-hmm.
That's the language we've internalized. That's the language we have created a habit with. So that's just what trips off our tongue.
Mm-hmm.
It's about how do we get curious? How do we get compassionate? How do we, I've said that. Ooh, that wasn't what I meant at all. And my mum used to say, cancel, cancel, cancel. But we can just notice. So being conscious, and you can't be conscious 24/7, but when we can, just observing and noticing, and I've said that, reframe without the, for goodness sake, why did you do that? You've done it again. What's going on? No, just, I've done it again. Maybe I'm tired today, or maybe I'm distracted today. So we can get curious, but also compassionate. I'm a human being. This happens. It slipped out. It's a habit. This is another opportunity to break that habit. I'm going to reframe. I'm going to practice something different and move on. Because I think we can be so quick when we're making changes, we're working on those changes, to go, I'm never going to change, am I? I've done it again.
It's like, and that feeling of failing. I
Yes.
didn't do this right. I said this wrong. And sometimes we put so much more pressure on ourselves because we feel we're doing something wrong or we're failing. And another thing I've been trying to practice more is that mindset of failing forward. It's not failing, it's learning. Oh, I did that. Okay, I'll just remember to say it, this way or do it this way. But sometimes we're a little hard on ourselves and we skip the learning part and
Yeah.
focus on the failing. And then that continues to affect us and our sense of safety and our sense of success, as humans, just being able to be successful in the terms of living and doing the things we want to do.
Yeah, absolutely. And our own inner voice, often the inner critic, is the one we hear the most. And if we don't feel safe because of what we're saying to ourselves, things we would never say to a friend or probably even to an enemy a lot of the time, then it's so important to change that, to reframe that, to catch it in the act and to know that's actually not my voice. That's
Mm.
something I've taken on board from someone, somewhere else. So we don't even have to identify it. Sometimes it can help to name it. A friend of mine, I can't remember what she calls hers, but I think I called mine Mabel for a while. Oh, be quiet, Mabel. Or thank you very much, Mabel. I've got this. You can go and sit in the corner because I'm doing things a different way today.
That's
And
lovely.
as well, there is no right or wrong, good or
Mhm.
bad. Things just are. And we're just here to navigate and we get to play with, does it feel better if I do it this way or does it feel better if I do it that way? Just play, explore, experiment. There's no sense of pressure. No, there doesn't need to be. No sense of, I've got it wrong, I've failed. No, you've just done it a way that you've recognized, celebrate, you've recognized it's not serving you. But in recognizing that, it gives you the opportunity to make a change. And if I can just, we talked about my acronym, WILD, WILD. The D of that acronym is dance. Because so often we see life as a test, a competition, pressure, versus life is a game. Life is an opportunity to play with all that we have at our disposal. And we get to explore and we get to experiment and we get to do it one way and then go, plot twist, I'm going off in another way because that way wasn't working. And no choice that we make is actually forever. We can try something out and didn't quite turn out how I expected, so I'm going to try something else, and that's okay. Even if you sign a contract, there are ways to get out of contracts. Legal, you can just, no, this isn't working. I need to change this. I need to get out of this contract. And we can do that with ourselves. We may feel like, I've made a promise to myself, but if it isn't working, it's no longer a good promise to yourself. Why tie yourself to that? And I know that there are things that we feel we have no choice, or it's a very difficult choice and we feel I don't like any of the options available. But if we take off some of that pressure and it's not something you can fail at, how can you fail at being yourself? That's all I think that is actually our purpose. We are here to be you as you can be, me as I can be. Because when we can do that to our fullest and we can allow ourselves to be who we were actually here to be, who we were born to be, wow. We each have gifts that only we can bring in the way that we can bring them. And they're appropriate for this time and this place. Because it's actually a miracle that any one of us are born as who we are. So it's not, I don't think it's an accident. Think of all the generations that went into forming who you are, all the different little bits that have come together from all those people who formed you. Isn't that a miracle? Isn't that just magic? So if we can let go of that sense of pressure and fear and have to be a success according to somebody else's criteria, quite often, because a successful person is the person who earns a lot of money or has a big house or a big car. Really? Is that your definition of success? You talked about success as an individual, as a human being. That's more my definition. But as me, an individual human being, because my definition of success is going to be different from yours. And that's okay. And I know that systems don't handle individuals well because they're a system. They want to be able to one size fits all, take it, there you go. But that's not who we are. So having that bit of flexibility, and to go back to dance, I'm a great one for going off on multiple tangents, so do pull me back. But somebody said to me, and this is something I used to say internally a lot as well, that it feels like life is just one step forward and two steps back, or even 10 steps back. Yeah, but if this was a dance, would that matter? Mm. It's just, I'm going with the flow. I get to be flexible and fluid and experience lots of different things. And I'm somebody who quite likes to travel. Maybe I haven't done any very exotic travel yet, but I do like to travel. We've been through Europe and we've tested different languages and cultures and foods. That variety is a spice of life, meeting different people, kind of getting a sense of, oh, how do you see the world and how do you see the world? Because we can pick up lots of little bits from that and weave it into something beautiful. So for me, the dance of life is kind of like that. I just get to play and experiment and try out and find out what I like and what I don't like. And that's it. No right, no wrong, no good, no bad, no failure. Just a dance.
Love that. I'm here taking notes, glasses on. because in our conversation, you've already given us so many strategies that we can use in our own lives. We talked about the strategy of reflection, and we talked about mindset shifts, like the example where I get to do this, right? So these mindset shifts that we can easily start implementing. You just talked about this framework of the dance of life and how that's another mindset shift, another reframing, but bringing in this framework, this dance of life framework to look at how we're navigating things. And this, I love traveling too, and I love immersing myself in different countries and culture, meet people, and just learning, just be participating, and through that learning. So this idea of meeting different people and really just learning about them and how they live, we're always bringing new things to the table, and it just helps with that mindset shift as well, and bringing new perspectives. Another strategy, bringing in new perspectives. So many strategies already in this conversation. I'm curious to hear your thoughts with everything you've navigated and the work you do now around wild and this idea of safety and growth. What are some other strategies you can share with us?
Well, to go back to wild, the W was a huge one for me. And it stands for wonder, because so often as we grow up and we become adults, we get cynical, we get jaded. I know I certainly did. And as I said before, I didn't even believe I could change. I didn't believe my life could get any better. And we kind of have this sense of, as it used to be said in my mum's family, G and B, just grin and bear it, just get on, keep head down, push through. I see this a lot with people, and I just keep pushing, just keep going. It'll, at some point it'll get better. But it doesn't. And at some point I'll be able to make time for more well-being. But unless we make that time, life is going to keep on going, and we'll never get to the end of our to-do list. No matter how many things you cross off it, it just keeps getting longer. So if instead of that cynical, jaded, kind of struggle, striving sense within our body, if we could look at life and the world with the eyes of a child, because you think of that little toddler, everything is new. And you start to explore your house, then beyond your house, and then out into the bigger world as you grow. And what's a rainbow? Why is the sky blue? Look at the stars. Look at the ocean. And it's all just so exciting, and it can be the big stuff like that, but equally, look at a leaf. Just I draw a lot on nature because that's my passion. But if you look at the intricacies of a leaf or of a molecule, I did science, or my husband is an engineer and he loves looking at beautifully tooled parts of an engine because they are incredible. And they've been created by people who, to me, that's just amazing how people create things like that. Inventors who come up with something new that we've not seen before. So the world is a fascinating, magical, wonderful place. We just lose sight of that. And there's that quote of magic is everywhere if you just know how to see it. So that's wonder. And the idea as well that if we are negatively wired. That is our part of our safety system. When we're born, automatically we're there to detect threats. Makes sense. Particularly when we lived as hunter-gatherers, we needed to know, is there a big cat behind that bush? Is there a bear in that cave? What's going to eat me? Is it anywhere near me? Do I need to fight? Do I need to run? But that's hopefully for most of us not our world anymore. We don't need to have that kind of fear. And yet we are still working from that mindset. Nowadays it might be, I have to give a talk tomorrow. I hate standing up in front of people. Or my boss has called me into the office. What on earth are they going to say? Or whatever. We still have those fight or flight responses, but fight or flight responses are designed for us to take action, for us to
Hmm.
do something physical. So we get pumped with adrenaline and cortisol to take that action. But nowadays, if the fight or flight response is triggered because I have to give a talk or my computer's crashed and I've just lost everything, we can't fight and we can't run away from those things. So, although our world has changed, our inner makeup hasn't really got that memo. It hasn't kept up. Our emotions are still there, but we're still kind of living from the fight flight survival scenario versus the actually what I need here right now is clarity of mind to think, what am I going to say? Not
Hmm.
stand up there and just mouth goes dry and all my words have left. Or what's the best way to fix this computer, which is not what I often feel like doing. I'm not very good with tech, throwing it out the window or hitting it with a hammer. So just being aware of all of those things. I in wild is intuition. As I was talking about earlier, we've often been taught not to trust the wisdom of our body because it doesn't maybe suit the system, like the educational system come in, sit down, work. But I need to move, or I need to look out the window so that my brain can do the processing, or I need to talk to my neighbour because I'm somebody who gets new ideas through the reflection of a conversation,
Hmm.
just as one example. So, how do we go back to listening and understanding, developing that sense of body vocabulary? What does my body say to me? Because it's very individual. Of course, there'll be areas of overlap and similarity, but how does my body tell me that this isn't working well for me? So, for me, often my tell was somewhere in my digestive system. So, tight stomach or digestive discomfort of some kind, or I got skin conditions. I said I had eczema. I would have eczema when something had been
Hmm.
happening for me. But what is your body? How does your body show you? Is it a type? Is it a headache or tinnitus ringing in the ears or itchy eyes? Or what is your body using to tell you? And how do we listen to that intuition? Both that kind of intuition and also that inner, huh? Which we need to be still in order to hear that because it's a quiet little voice. And in our busy world, we're often not encouraged or feel we have permission to get that quiet. And it's uncomfortable as well because we're so used to running at 100 miles an hour. The L of wild is loving ourselves. So that's kind of what we were talking about earlier. Not listening to our little Mabel, our inner critic. Yeah, you can go and sit in the corner. I've got this. Because there's a thing that goes around sometimes on social media. You've been beating up on yourself for years. Has it worked? Have you changed and become the person you want to be? Probably not. How about you try loving yourself instead? They've even done this with plants. Talk nicely to a plant or yell at a plant. Call it all sorts of names and curse and swear at it. Which plant thrives? Masaru Emoto, Dr. Masaru Emoto did it with water. Send love to water and freeze it, and it forms beautiful crystals. Send hate to water and freeze it, it goes all fractured. It's known scientifically. This isn't just woo-woo fluffy stuff. This is scientifically shown to actually have an impact. And if you think about the water, and we are 70 odd percent water in our bodies, this is having an impact on our bodies. So that's L, loving ourselves. And D is dance that we've talked about. And then putting that all together, how do we start to explore how I, as an individual, might live that kind of a wild life?
Wow. So wonderful way to put it together with an acronym and something that we can try. A lot of it is mindset shift, of course. It's putting us in that place. So we have this opportunity. We get to try to look at the world through wonder. We try to look at our intuition and reconnect with that intuition, because it's true, we do push it aside, and we have this opportunity to learn to love ourselves better and integrate that more, and use this framework of dance in terms of life as a dance, and everything um, is a dance in essence. And nothing just moves forward. You don't just dance forward and keep going. You go around and back and left and right. So it brings a different perspective at looking at how we can start to rediscover our true selves, and also give ourselves the freedom to be ourselves. I feel that, the especially with certain generations, certain people and social media, but I think the way we live, we're not as much ourselves as we would like to be, because it doesn't always feel safe, whether it's in our personal lives, work lives, just as human, our human lives, or who we are. So it's just a different mindset shift to help us get to that place where we can feel safe to be our true selves.
Absolutely. And we were talking earlier before we came live about that safety.
Mm-hmm.
So I have a Substack account, and I've been posting a series of posts about that because I think it's a term, psychological safety, that people use a lot these days, or nervous system safety. What does it actually mean? It's a very nice term, but we maybe don't quite have a handle on what that is, and that it is not, it is that psychological or emotional aspect of safety as well as the physical, because quite often we hear safety and we think health and safety, physical stuff. Am I safe from being beaten? Or if there's a fire, do I know how to leave the building? Do I know how to operate the extinguisher? But what about our psychological safety? Do we feel that there's somebody always looking over our shoulder, criticizing us, judging us? Do we feel that it's safe to express my opinions? Or even it's safe to wear the clothes that I would choose to wear? Because that is an expression in itself. Or do I feel that I'm not somebody who feels comfortable in suit, but the job I do expects us to arrive in that kind of clothing.
Mm-hmm.
And therefore, when I'm at work, I don't feel entirely comfortable in my body. And I feel like I have to behave in a certain way because I'm wearing a suit. I feel restricted in myself.
Yeah.
All of these sorts of things play into that psychological safety. Is this an environment, work, home, wherever, where I feel I can speak my mind? Or I'm worried that people are going to judge me? And you think about people who belong to maybe minority groups and they don't want to be outed as being part of that group. It could be a political thing, it could be your sexual orientation or whatever, but maybe you just don't feel safe to have that known in that group, which obviously isn't ideal. But if you find yourself in that situation and you can't just suddenly, oh, well, I'm going to quit my job then, that might not be an option for you because you need the money coming in, the income coming into your house. But be aware and take care. You get to, okay, so work is really challenging. What can I do to bring a little bit more balancing? I don't talk about balance as a one and done. I think of it as a dynamic verb rather than a noun. And also to look for harmony. If you think of those life wheels that people sometimes use and you fill in each of the spokes on the wheel, where do I feel I am with my health, with my family, with my job, with my level of activity? And just, if you do that, does it look balanced or does it look like it's all skewed one way or another? Would that wheel be comfortable on a vehicle, or would you be going up and down and feeling every single bump in the road? So if work doesn't feel safe, how might you support yourself more, knowing every day I go into work is challenging, it's draining. And also, hopefully, in the background, thinking, maybe I could find another job. Don't have to quit this one and just run. but I support myself and I'm actively looking for something now that I know what I need. I'm actively looking for something where I'll feel safer.
I like that analogy because we can use it ourselves to analyze how we're feeling in terms of balance and harmony. And I'm always looking at all these reflection tools, like how can I see this? Just eye openers for me. And then I can say, okay, so now I see this, I get to make this change or this different to feel more, more in harmony or more balanced and feel more psychologically safe overall. Because we can't compartmentalize. We can be one thing here and one, we're at work and we're at home and we're this person. They're like five different Jackie personalities. We're really one, and it's finding that balance.
And that's not to say we have to be the same in every situation, or I must be flaky because I'm different with this set of people from I am with this set of people. That is okay so long as you still feel like I can be myself. It's just different aspects of me because I meet different people and they bring out different aspects of my being. And possibly also there's a different purpose. So one of them might be activity and sport, and one of them might be work. And you're obviously going to be different unless you work as a PT or a physical therapist or a sports coach or something. But yeah, I'm going to be more active and using more of that kind of energy in one environment, and I'm going to be quite different potentially at work. That's okay, as long as I'm comfortable.
Mm-hmm. Very well. These are wonderful, wonderful tips and frameworks for all of us. And thank you so much for sharing. I want to ask, is there anything else you want to share? Any final thoughts or words of advice? Something I didn't get to ask you that maybe is important to share? This is a great opportunity for that.
Thank you. I would like to share my book.
Yes, the
So,
cover is amazing, by the way, with the
thank
green and
you.
the ring and the woman facing into the ring.
It's like having a logo. And for people with businesses and logos, you'll know that there's a lot of secret stuff that people who don't know the inside of your business will maybe not be aware of. So I often think of the FedEx logo. And did you know that there's an arrow within the FedEx logo?
Oh, I
Yeah.
don't know if I know that.
So if you, it's kind of in the center.
Uh-huh.
I think is it between maybe the E and the X or something, where you've got. I can't see it in my mind's eye just now, but there are those things. What colors have you used and why? And what does that shape mean? Is there anything kind of hidden in that shape? What does it represent to you? Which obviously, as the person designing the logo and the person maybe owning the business, there's a lot of heart that maybe people don't see or don't need to see from the outside. But when you look at your logo, it reminds you, yes, that's why I do what I do. Like Simon Sinek always talking about, know your why.
Mhm.
So for me, there was a lot of kind of subtle stuff within this image of the woman being barefoot. I often go barefoot for that grounding connection with the earth. And she's heading off into the wild to go on an exploration. And she's kind of dancing and she's looking forward to this fun adventure. So the book basically is my story and why I got myself into a point where I wasn't very well and how I then went on my journey and came to creating Wild. And there are exercises in there about, well, what does it mean to live in wonder? What does it mean to reconnect with my intuition and start listening to my body and understanding and working with having that dialogue? How do I love myself when all of my life I've just been living with this inner critic and feeling judged and all of those things? How on earth do you dance with life? How does that work? What does that look like? So the book takes you through all of that, and yeah, it's weird to think that I've written that's my book. But as I said earlier on, looking around and seeing people who are where I was, this was designed as a kind of companion because I think when you're in that space, You feel very isolated. And that's actually something that comes from trauma and adverse childhood experiences, particularly, I think, ACEs, because when we feel that trauma when we're very young, as Gabor Mate talks about, we have that sense of isolation. I can't talk to anybody about this. If I share this, people are going to think I'm weird. I'm the only one. But this was designed to be, you are not the only one. And as I said, if I can do it, you can do it. But sometimes it's nice to have somebody to walk beside you, somebody to hold your hand when things are difficult, somebody to shine a light so that you can find your own answers, to ask the right questions, creating that space of safety, and then asking those questions out of curiosity and compassion to help you find your answers. It's not about my answers. They're not going to work for anybody other than me. They're not designed to work for anybody other than me. So walking with you as you find your own wonderful answers that will bring something new to the world that the world hasn't had until you brought it.
I love that. And the book is Take a Walk on the Wild Side, and it is available on Amazon. And for our listeners, the links to all the resources, including the book, are in the podcast episode description. So you could click and get what you need. Wow, thank you
Yes,
for
thank you.
that. I mean, the work is amazing. I'm glad you were able to bring it together as a companion for us. Thank you for sharing your framework and the strategies with us. Definitely a reflective kind of conversation. I'm here thinking about many aspects of psychological safety of myself and what I'm going to try next. What are the next strategies? A little bit at a time, finding the right balance, harmony, making sure I'm moving with that dance. But definitely for me, this was very helpful. So thank you so much for being on the show today.
It's been an absolute joy and a pleasure for me, Jacqueline. Thank you so much for having me as your guest.
Thank you. And again, for our listeners, the information is in the description. The links are there for you. I hope you enjoyed this episode and that you got out of it as much or more than I did. Thank you so much, Robyn Harris, for being here with us again.